Good
And
evening,
we're
sweetie.
we're back.
We're back once again. The eyes of indigo. That's Iris is
so,
closest to actually having iris eyes and indigo eyes than. What color are your eyes? They're bluish, aren't they?
they're hazel, so it depends on
Hazily.
what I'm wearing. It'll come out more blue if I'm wearing blue and that sort of thing. Hey, Betty, it's good to see you back.
Good
Thank you for
evening,
joining us
Betty.
again.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a uh, we love when people join us. If they would say hello, we get people joining us from YouTube and Facebook, and we'll share comments and that sort of thing on the screen so both sides can see it. But please tell us you're out there, please.
Please, please let us know. Type HI, and that's all you got to do.
Yeah.
And it
Eh,
helps us knowing that you're out there.
yes.
So, welcome back to all of our regulars that come in every week or every other week or whatever tickles your fancy. And thank you. Somebody gave me a compliment. And hi, Carrie. Thank you for
Yay,
dropping in
Carrie
too.
follows instructions.
Instructions.
Yay.
Applause for Betty and Carrie. This is
Yeah.
awesome. And if you're new to the show, welcome to the channel. We have been here since September of 2020.
You're breaking up a little bit, or at least for me, you are.
How about we turn a few knobs here? Is that
That's
any
better.
better?
Hmm.
We have been here since September of 2020. And if you'd like to learn more about who is this Iris, who is this Margot, where do they get their ideas, formulations? Why are they here?
We
You
hear
can learn.
voices.
We get paid to hear voices on behalf of other people. So that's just one aspect of what we do. But you can see all of our credentials and all of our studies and occupations and professions in the first episode called The Prequel in September of 2020. I believe it shows up on Facebook. I know it shows up on YouTube.
Yeah.
If you scroll back and you can learn about us quickly split in 30 minutes or less. So feel free to enjoy that. But tonight's episode, Iris, where are we going for tonight?
Where are we going for tonight? I let me get back over here. It is the Akashic Records. And if you think about it, it's all words, events, thoughts, emotions, and intent of all life forms in the past, present, and future exist on this plane of existence. But what is it? Where is it? Can we access it? And if so, how? So we're glad you're joining us for this discussion, and we're going to talk about it. And in my own little sassy way, I said, "Well, if you couldn't join us, you can look into the Akashic Records yourself and see what's going to happen." Uh, but yeah, it's what are the Akashic Records? And I guess the first thing I should say is a good definition of it is I got this loosely translated. Akashic is from Sanskrit, and it means ethers, or roughly that which holds all. And it is the database of information that transcends all realms and dimensions and can be thought of as a massive library of information.
Mm-hmm.
And
In
we were,
3D terms. In 3D
yeah,
terms. It's more
3D
than that, but in
terms.
3D terms, yeah.
Because you got to remember we're in a three-dimensional world. That's where humans live, and we kind of want to just hit on that because sometimes we talk about it for a while and then we don't really explain that. So if somebody's new, they might not understand. But yeah,
Mm.
3D, where you've got depth, height, and width.
And width and
And
time and
yeah,
time.
in time. And
which is past, present, and future. So that's still 3D. Yeah.
yeah. So that's just kind of the way we have constructed our world. And there are other dimensions, other, what's the word I'm looking for? Not just three dimensional, but like when we talk about 5D, we're not necessarily talking about dimensions, we're talking about
interdimensional, multidimensional, multiverse, cosmic. I'm trying to hit concepts that might help. I don't know.
I can't think of the
What you're reaching
word.
for?
Um,
Handy
yeah,
dandy.
multiverse.
And the cosmic thesaurus. When we talk
5D.
about definitions of what the Akashic is, a few months ago, I heard a really good explanation that that the internet is a 3D representation of the Akashic record. On the fourth and fifth and sixth dimensions of awareness, you can access the Akashic just by thinking about it. It's actually a part of your awareness. It's a part of your natural, what we would call thinking. Well, in 3D, that access is not as apparent. It is. We can access it that way, but it's not as easy and it's not as direct. And to assist to that, enlightenment, to assist that acquisition, the internet takes the place and becomes basically, again, a 3D representation of the Akashic record in the third dimension. Hi, Edie. You're very good. Thank you for checking in. Good to see you. Absolutely. Did you find what you were looking for, Iris?
No, I didn't. And it's just another word that begins with a D that,
Not dimension, but
it's
something
not
else.
dimension, it's something else, and I cannot think of what the word is. And
There's
it's there, but I
dimension, and
got
there's
too many other
also
things dancing in my head.
density. Are you trying to think of the word density?
Maybe density, or
Density means something else, but it's related. Yeah.
yeah.
Third density,
Um,
fourth density.
and I know, yeah, I think that's might be it. And then, and what's interesting is like I hear those terms used, and then like in theta healing, we talk about the seven planes of existence,
Mm-hmm.
which follows a lot of the same thing. Hey, Christine, glad to see you. Appreciate you coming. Um, and some of those follow similar progressions that other people have talked about, like the first plane of existence is the earth elements, like
Right.
rocks, minerals, that kind of thing. And then the second plane of existence is plants and animals, and the third plane of existence is people. Um,
Humans.
and then the fourth is the first, which there's multiple levels on each plane.
Yeah, on each plane. Right.
Yeah, but the fourth is considered like our spiritual home, like when we die, where we go. And then the fifth is where the ascended masters and angels and those beings exist. And then the sixth plane of existence is the Akashic Records and the uh, laws of the laws of God. Where is my head? I need to ground myself, I think.
Not not
Basically
laws of
all the laws
attraction.
of
The law of one. The laws of
yeah, well,
one.
the law of one is there, the law, all the laws of existence, like the law of
Like dual
gravity, the law of
law
electricity,
law of duality, and so on
yeah,
and so
all
law of
those
all those.
exist with the Akashic records. And then the seventh plane of existence is um the God force, whatever you want to call it. The creator of all that is. It's on that level. But like I said, you got multiple levels on each.
It's very close to the interpretation that Matthias talks about on Gaia.com. He describes 9 levels, and the first 5 are parallel to what you described, but 6 and 7, and then 8 and 9 are different. They're still similar. 6 is where the Godhead is. 7 is something else, and so is 8, and so is 9.
Wow.
But 9 is related to 1, and 4 is related to 8. And so some have, it's sort of like if you had, Akashic lines and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you can bend it and they touch each other. And so 9 and 1 are working together, and 4 and 8 work together, and they move, and the different points affect each other.
On the planes of existence, they're considered more like rings that you go out.
There you go. That's
so instead
a
of
good
seeing
visual.
it as planes,
Yeah.
it's more of, and I say rings, but I guess it would actually be circles, like.
You know what I saw? Do you know what a torus is? The donut shape? It's constantly spinning. And so there's a hole in the middle, so to speak. There's kind of a hole in the middle, but it's because of the rotation, but the rotation is a whole ring all the way around, which we call a donut. Homer Simpson was right. Once again, the Simpsons had a clue.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know, it makes you roll your eyes, but it really does. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing is the rings are Tauruses, one inside of the other. Potentially, or one inside of the other that way, rather than separate rings.
Yeah, and then the idea is when we go up and out, we're going through the universe as we know it, and doing those, extending through the different levels or different planes of existence to get where we want to go. We could stop along the way if we wanted, but the idea is go to the creator, and then you have access to everything.
Yeah. Go to the source. Go to the horse's mouth.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to mess with those little
interpretations,
and
filters, and what have you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
let's start with answering some of the questions that we put forward about what is the Akashic, where is the Akashic, how do we access it, what does that feel like, what does that look like, etc., etc. Which one of those do you want to start with, Iris? Where do you feel drawn to? What is the Akashic telling you to say?
Well, I think the Akashic, it's interesting. The times that I've been to it, I have been shown, and I think this is like the visualization process of anybody who's doing psychic readings and that sort of thing. You can, some people will visualize or be given a vision to represent what they're seeing, because maybe our minds can't quite conceive of the concept that it is. So like if you think about the Akashic Records, and it's just a massive energy of all this stored information.
Well, let me back up just a little bit to sort of give some foundation to what you just said. If you think about energy in terms of being little packets of energy, and those little packets of energy are filed in a relative logical order depending on what's in them, like a library, the book, it depends on what's in the book, where it's going to be stored in the library, and how to access it in the library depends on what's in there. So consider ideas, concepts, events, words, thoughts, past, present, and future as little packets of energy, and thus the whole Akashic record is made of energy. Just to give it some foundation.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Okay, so anyway, what I was shown, the first time I went there, it was like all of a sudden I saw myself in this massive, gorgeous library with the marble floors and the marble
Oh,
columns, and I could see rows of books and things that I knew were records. And as I started to walk toward them to look at and there was like there was this massive hallway and or entryway and tables and chairs and stuff. But then there, when you got to the end of that, there was like a podium or a control panel kind of thing. Like you could stand
okay.
at and sort of see everything from the top of the stairs. And I wandered up there and was kind of looking around and I started to go toward what you'd call the stacks if you were in a library. And I was like, you don't need to go there. And I knew that. Intuitively, I kind of went, why am I going over here? Because this isn't, it
Because
was
you want to
almost like,
see.
this is, yeah, but it
You
was
want to
like,
see.
this isn't something that you need to wander around and pull off shelves and stuff like that. It was kind of like, just say what you want to know.
Yeah.
And and I was
Just
like,
ask.
oh, okay, thanks. And and that's how it came. And it was also where I've gone and met some of the laws, and because they are entities, and have
They
gone
have
and
their
talked to them.
personifications. Yeah, they have
Yeah.
sentience and life force of their own individually. Yeah, they have intelligence and sentience of their own.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I mean, and very good sense of humor and
To have that
easy.
existence, you'd have to be able to laugh it off.
Yeah,
You would.
and it was like in the law of gravity, that was the funniest thing. When I saw the law of gravity, he was a real short Italian guy, and it was like, it's like, wow, you
That's
are
funny.
incredibly short. And it was like, yeah, he just kind of laughed because gravity, and I was
Gravity
like,
pulled
oh,
it.
that is so cute.
Little tiny Super Mario dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So okay, great. And the law of truth was very comfortable to talk to, and but and I've taken other people with me to see the Akashic records and what I saw, and they could describe it back to me, so that was interesting.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
but
So
yeah,
tell
the
us what
information's
did
there.
yeah,
Mhm.
tell us well, you started down there. Tell us what they saw that you saw during those times
Saw
you
the
did that.
library, the chairs, and like this one particular person, she wanted to see. She talked about she'd never met the law of truth, and I said, "Yes, you have. You just don't remember it."
Yeah, you have
And
to come to this world, you have to. Yeah.
yeah, and she was like, and she'd heard about other people meeting the laws and that sort of thing, and I said, "Do you want me to introduce you?" And she said, "Yeah." So I said, "Let's go." And we meditated together and she was describing the same things I was seeing in the
Oh,
Akashic records. And
nice.
she started she met the law of truth met us there. And I kind of like, okay, here you go. And while she was talking to them, I sat down and was talking to somebody else, like I think it might have been the law of gravity or one of the others. I can't remember now.
Hmm.
But I was just sitting there and it was kind of like I was aware they were standing behind me talking. And I was kind of doing my thing and just kind of
Yeah.
looking around and then when she was ready to come out of it, we did, and I was like, I'll see you
It
guys later.
it makes sense that the law of truth would show up in the Akashic record because that's what the Akashic is. It's all truth.
Hmm.
It's every truth that's ever existed, even ones that we consider falsehoods. They're true to somebody, and
Yeah.
therefore it's an equal and valid truth. So that makes
No,
sense that the
Vienna
Akashic
talks
would
about
sort of
like
be.
the laws. Several of the laws came and like walked through her bedroom, and that's how she met them. but
Mhm.
I've just
That would
been
be
real comfortable
introducing
meeting them
themselves.
in the
Yeah.
Akashic Records.
We-
I probably met others that I wasn't aware of, but yeah.
I'm sure they take many forms depending on what that situation needed,
Mhm.
what that particular human needs.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So that
Mhm.
and it was I was very comfortable in the Akashic Records, and I really hadn't thought about it until you were talking about it recently. And then it kind of fell together where we're constantly tapping into it when we're doing readings and or we're trying to get information, whether we're reading somebody or and they're wanting to know what's happening or what's going on, like with relationships or things like that, and you do readings related to that, and you can find out more about the person. You tap in, and it's like sometimes I have a voice talking to me, and
Mhm.
I can hear things,
Right.
but a lot of times I'm getting pictures of things and seeing things, and I feel like that's when I'm really getting information from the Akashic Records. Is
You feel like it's less filtered. Is that,
Yeah,
do I understand you right? Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, a little
So
more direct, perhaps. Yeah. A little more direct for you.
you reminded me a minute ago. There was a movie years ago called, I think
Mm.
it was Brainstorm or Brain something. It had Christopher Walken and Ellen Bernstein and a couple other. Oh, Natalie Wood was in it. It was one of the last movies she made. Um, and the whole thing was they had figured out a way to record somebody's memories, and then you could
Yeah, it
replay
was
it and experience it.
something like Brightwood or Burnwood or something like that. Nightwood or something
It
like that.
had
It was
some
like the
brain
name.
something in it. Something brainstorm. I
I
don't
think it
remember.
was Branson. I remember the word. Well, you know what? Maybe it's just her last name that's jumping in there. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
other people, they could record people's thoughts and let other people hear them. Is that
Um,
what you're saying?
experience. They could record experiences and the emotions and feelings and all that go with it, and then they could play them back, or they could share it with somebody else, so that it was like a virtual reality, but you're experiencing
Mm-hmm.
other people's experiences. And the woman who was on the panel, helping develop, I think it was Ellen Bernstein, she had a heart attack and she hooked herself up to the machine because she knew she was getting ready to die.
Oh,
And so it was to share her experience. And what was
good
interesting was,
scientist. Yeah,
yeah, and what
good for her.
was interesting was like when she died and, she's kind of going into the ethers, it was all these little like glass balls all around as far as you could see. And like you'd come close to one and there was a memory, and you come close to another one, and I guess now looking back, oh, the
It was a
Akashic Record.
representation. It was yeah. Her book, her pages, her record inside of the Akashic. Yeah,
It's Brainstorm
Storm.
1983. Thank you, Edie.
Go, Edie.
Yeah.
Go, her girl.
Yeah, they
One for
filmed
Edie.
part of it at the Outer Banks. That was one thing. It was cool. It was actually like
Oh,
in North Carolina, filmed at RTP and down at the Outer Banks. So
a little bit of local
yeah.
folklore there too. Very cool. Very cool. All right.
So yeah.
So, how do you know? What does it feel like? How do you know you're in there when you're accessing the Akashic record?
I'm usually in a good meditative state.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's comfortable, it's peaceful, it's quiet, it's like um I feel like I'm in a location, when I'm actually
You're
there.
aware of. You're aware of being okay. You're aware of
I'm aware
physical
of not
presence.
being right here. Yeah.
Oh, you're aware of being somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah. And I think if I'm doing a reading for somebody, I'm starting to recognize better when I'm tapping into the Akashic records versus the other. And that was just something that I realized just recently. Hadn't really thought about it before. So, what about you?
Interesting. Interesting. When I'm cut, all my readings, I'm tapping into the Akashic record. Sometimes it is via other people's guides telling me what files and or information are needed. In other words, I let them go pull the information and then show me the parts they want me to convey to the intended person, target, client, whatever you want to say. And I do that because that is a filter, an angle, a perspective, whatever, that the client already has because it's their guide or their angel or their ancestor or whoever that's retrieving the information and telling it to me. Therefore, they're telling it to me in a way that my client is going to understand because I don't know that human client as intimately as they do. So they know what's significant wording, significant syntax that's going to mean more, or symbolism that's going to mean more to the client than I do. So I literally am just making myself a transceiver. And I'm just, listening on one side, speaking on the other, listen again, speak on the other, and go and keep my stuff out of the way as clearly as possible, obviously. When I'm in there, although I can go in there on my own, I can go in there. Of course I do. Yeah, for myself. Okay. Yeah. Or for people that I do know intimately, like if I'm doing a reading on you, I don't really bother with your guides because I feel like I already know you. We've done it so many times. I know what gets through and what would not be relevant for you. So in terms of terminology, not knowledge, but terminology. So,
Right.
And when I'm doing that, though, I'm aware of there's a physical sensation, and it's hard to describe, but I think I could show it with my hands as a little, because there is a visual to it, sort of. Okay, both my hands are me at this point, and I get the sensation of that. And now I'm seeing everything from up here. This is still active. This can still see. This can still hear. This one can even see and hear what this one is. This one doesn't talk. It's still aware, observing everything that it needs to, but it's not saying anything. This one does. This one absorbs information and sends it down to be a transmitter. This one does not talk on its own. This one only talks when this one does. And what I feel like I'm demonstrating is a higher self of me, a less third dimensional version of myself, a much higher awareness self, Christed self, Buddha self, whatever you want to say, another dimension, self. And in that space, what does it feel like? What is it like? For me, I don't get the really cool visual that you have of this austere library, with the grand, floors and facades and columns and nice stuff like that. Mine actually turns into infinite grayness. It's just fog.
Wow.
It's just fog. There's nothing really to see. You can look around, but all it is maybe some swirlies moving around, and they're not even colorful. But they are seriously loaded with a ton of information, but on an atomic level, on a molecular and atomic level. So, and there's so much going on and so much going around that they don't have time to stop to make things. All right. So it's just a floating soup that really just kind of looks like a gray mist from my point of view. The characteristic that lets me know I'm not heading into a sleepy fog or because you can see that going to sleep. You can see that getting high. You can see that, when you just on 3D Earth, you can run into that at night, a foggy dark mist. What tells me that it's not any of that kind, or so that would be an outer body experience. So what tells me it's not that is the feeling that goes with it, that this secondary thing that's up here is also huge compared to this. I get this expansive feeling. I get this huge, large, observing mothership looking at all my tiny UFOs running around. I get the gigantic mothership kind of feel relativity to my human existence. And it's expansive, it's giant. And I feel like Jupiter looking at Earth, Mars, and the moons. All right, it's giant relative to them. And the only thing bigger than me is probably the Godhead, which would be the sun. And yes, that's a hint, guys. It's an abstract, obtuse reference to something you might figure out in a few years. So, so back to what we're talking about. The feeling is numbing. It's very serene. It's very relaxing. It's not hot. It's not cold. It's not. There's a vague floaty feeling to it. Vaguely, kind of. There's a lack of gravity, sort of. But I'm still very aware of everything. Who's in front of me? Who's listening? What time it is that I'm on Earth? That I'm a human? That I'm channeling information for someone else, and so on. And the information just shows up in my awareness. Like you, similar to you, though, it does come back to abstract stuff, feelings, visuals, symbology tends to be more direct information than listening to verbiage from another entity, because language in and of itself is a filter, because it's a cultural icon. It's an icon of a culture. It represents a belief system. It represents a cultural belief system, measures and values and all that are attached to that particular culture. So, and idioms and everything. Interestingly, what I find out too is that there is a shit ton of swear words in the Akashic. They have no filter. Yeah, there's a whole lot less worrying about propriety and hurting anybody's feelings or being appropriate or anything. They're more the
Well, it
energy, the
is. If it's a
information
true
comes
recording,
straight through. Yeah, and some good, bad, and ugly, and and beautiful. All four
well, again,
come through.
judgment isn't on that level.
Right. Judgment doesn't exist at all, but humor sure as hell does. And they think swearing is funny. They see that as a way to break the ice and use the energy of humor. Ooh, Iris, I wonder if there's actually a law of humor or something like that. That just popped in my head. That's the first time I've ever thought of that. Guys, that's what it looks like. It just boink. It
Yeah,
shows up.
yeah.
They give you inklings of next level awareness, and it's up to me and if Iris wants to, or if you want to go look into it, research it. Oh, I wonder if there's because humor, while it is cultural, it's very culture specific. Humor is, especially on Earth. What's funny in one culture is not funny in another. Sometimes, most of the time, you have to really translating humor is hard. However, all types of humanity have humor. You can see jokes written on the walls of Pompeii before the volcano went off in the
Oh, wow.
graffiti. Yeah, in the graffiti. I mean, literally, it's a kind of two men walk into a bar and one of them said, yada, yada, yada. It's not that terribly far off from modern humor.
Wow.
So it's such a universal concept, but it's so cultural specific that you could probably argue each side about whether or not the law of humor actually exists.
I
It's
think it's
possible it only exists in certain dimensions, maybe not all of them. So therefore, it wouldn't be a law. It might be something else.
I
But
think there's something it's like within um communication, like law
Mm.
of the law of interaction or something like that, where it's part of that.
If anybody in our audience is familiar with the laws of one and the universal laws, if you want to jot down which laws you remember, we might be able to extrapolate something. We've named a few of them: gravity, electricity, duality, which is also gender, I think, and so on. There's three of them there. I think there's a law of one too. I think that's actually one of the laws. So I think there's like what, 5 or 6 or 7 laws, something like that. Does that sound right, Iris?
Of how many?
How many laws are there? There's
There's
not that. There's
there's
not that many.
no, but there's more than you'd think. I mean, like I know there's like the laws of the universal laws and uh, laws of humanity. Some of those things they kind of
Break it
cross.
up by that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that
and
makes sense because we wouldn't be able to understand every single concept.
right.
So it makes sense that there's laws that apply at different levels of consciousness or awareness. Absolutely, yeah. So that would mean there was more than what we know about.
Yes.
Interesting. All right,
Yeah,
interesting
the law of
sidebar.
attraction, law of gravity, law of
Attraction and gravity. Wouldn't that be the same thing?
mm-mm.
No.
Law of attraction is more dealing with
We need to do a podcast on that.
yeah.
Write that
Make
down.
myself a note. The laws.
Because we're going to sidebar onto that if we keep going too far. But yeah, the laws of
The laws of attraction are more for manifesting and bringing things to you and that sort of thing.
ooh, I have heard some interesting counterproductive interpretations about the law of attraction and where it actually came from and who formulated it.
Ooh.
Ooh, very intriguing. It's not all sunshine and good stuff.
Well,
Yeah,
and you
let's talk about that later.
okay? All right,
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
put
discuss
the
that
laws
later.
on the agenda. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so
Absolutely. So,
all right, so
Akashic
moving
Record.
on.
Yes.
Um, I think one of the things that I wanted to bring up too also is that even though the Akashic records are showing the past, present, and future, and they are storing all knowledge and happenings and that sort of thing, it's not predestination.
Yes. Good clarity.
Because we still have free will. And
Yes.
we've talked about like if you face a major decision at some point that the timelines can split and you one decision goes one way and one decision goes the other, so you still have both, but you still make those decisions. um
We're
oh, thank you,
complimenting
Edie.
we're complimenting your gorgeous manicure.
It's like
She
I
does.
wouldn't pay attention.
Iris
Yeah.
has beautiful hands. She does.
Oh,
She has
thank you.
beautiful hair too. You should see.
Oh
She's
God.
she's got. And those on audio won't be able to tell, but she's having a lovely hair day. I'm not. I'm not. But she is.
Yeah, and you were complimented on your scarf too.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
So
but thank you.
sorry, we got vain there for a second. You were saying?
But yeah, so don't think of it as a, oh, we can go and tell the future. You can go there and see what choices there are, or what the probability is of, like if you keep going the same way you are, this will be the outcome. But if you change some decisions along the way, the outcome
Free
could
will.
change. Yeah, because of
Right.
free will.
Because of free will.
Um, And we might as well just flat out bring it up because we talked about it earlier. Looking Glass.
Ooh. Boy, you did go there, didn't you?
Let's just dive right in.
Let's just throw the other freaking shoe in there. All right. Some of you might know what looking glass technology is. Some of you might not. It is a controversial concept that appears to be a real thing and not just a concept. It is technology that can tap into the most likely possible future. It tends, apparently, there's old versions of the looking glass technology and there's newer versions of the technology. And the good guys have their version, and the bad guys, depending on what you think good and bad is, the bad guys have their version of the technology. But generally speaking, the rumor is that it's only accurate out a few months, up to like so many months, or or in some cases so many years, such as one type of looking glass technology stops at the year 2030 and they can't make it go any further. Another one can only go out 6 months and they can't make it go any further. So just like any other type of technology, it depends on what your how good your updates are, how good your programming and your silicon chips are, and what kind of power source you have. Also,
and might as well throw it out there. The source of this information, Looking Glass, was brought to us by.
Go ahead. Don't make me do it all by myself. You do it.
You know how the government has fessed up to being, we've had aliens all this time.
And alien technology all this time.
Technology, and the government, and that's what's so fascinating to me is the government has confessed and admitted
all of
and
it.
Put all this information. Yes, y'all
and
were
the
right
media
all along.
Does not
all
acknowledge
those conspiracies, they're true. And we don't hear any. It's like
you don't hear anything about
drop it in the mainstream media, and it's like,
guys, where do you think microwave ovens came from?
Yeah. And you
where
remember
do you
the
think
statement
Velcro
in Men in Black where he says, "How do you fund this?" And Will Smith goes, "Where's the funding from this come?" And he says, "Oh, yeah, little things like inventions, like patents on microwave ovens and Velcro and all." Yeah.
They're actually telling you the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another reveal. Yeah. So,
but
that's
this looking glass technology. Yeah, it's aliens.
It is off planet. I wouldn't necessarily call it alien because those are our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't mean to cause the divisionary line just by referring them to aliens. But yeah. No. We're all brothers and sisters.
There is the law of duality. It's okay. That's it. We're in 3D, so duality is very, very present. Very, very strong law in our awareness of the universe. So, yeah, it's alien it's alien off-planet technology that humans acquired decades and decades ago and have been using it. They finally figured out how to use it in the 60s. And they've been refining it, and therefore you've got old models, intermediate models, and advanced models. They've been refining it the whole time. And they have been able to predict certain events, and they have been able to waylay the severity of certain events. And other times they could not do anything about it. And because the other side had the same technology. So every move you made to circumvent a situation, they move the event. So you're no longer circumventing it back here. It's already happening out there or something. There's some 3D, 4D thinking in here. Watch Paul. Which Paul?
Is that
Paul
movie? Yeah, I don't think we're talking about.
Oh, the movie Paul about the alien that comes down and talks to the two Simon Pegg stars in it.
Yeah,
with the other
saw
guy.
That years ago. I need to see it again.
That is a reveal, and yeah, Paul tells you all this stuff. Mm-hmm. All of it. Yeah, that movie Paul tells everything, and it's a comedy. And that's how they sneak it under the fence, is they make it a comedy so people won't take it seriously. So, yeah, humans are easy that way.
Gotta throw this
in
one up.
media.
This is a good time for this. Maury Povich is on, he's looking at one of those cards like, he's going to read somebody's genetic history or something. He says, "You stated you never asked to be born. The Akashic Records determined that was a lie."
Boom! Anybody, anywhere you exist, you signed up for it.
Yeah.
Why you signed up for it, how they got you to sign up for it, or if you volunteered yourself, those are all different stories. But you can't do anything without agreeing to it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Give us
All
another
right.
one. Give us another funny.
I like
There,
this one.
well, there's some profound ones this time too, not just funnies.
Yeah, here's the funny one though. I'll go to the next funny one because the Simpsons are so predominant, and I'll make this so you can see it. It shows Marge, and she's looking at all these containers on a shelf, and it's me choosing which of my special interests to hyperfixate on for the next few months. And it's got aliens, deities, astral projection, crystals, Akashic records, energy healing, divination, the law of attraction.
Like she's shopping.
Which one will I study these few months? Yeah.
Absolutely. People do that. That's very familiar. That's very, very familiar the way we go about it. What grabs you for a few months?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are hyper focused right now, or hyper fixated, as it said, on the Akashic record. Where is the Akashic record, Iris? Where is it?
It's everywhere. Well, for me, it's I consider it on the sixth plane, but actually, and it's accessible to us.
How's it everywhere but only on the sixth plane?
It. Yeah, we're always feeding it, so it's got to be around us. But and it's just like all these other beings are around us, and we can't see them. I mean, but we can tap into it at any point. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of got its own energy space, but it's
pervasive everywhere.
Yeah.
It's pervasive everywhere. I've heard other people state interesting interesting tidbits of information that rang true, that what are record keepers, Akashic record keepers? These are beings that transmit the information, maintain this energy body, or do other stuff that we can't understand that function at this level. We don't have language for it. But there are beings
to do that actually, and I think you said you did too.
Absolutely.
But I know
that's one reason we can tap into it so fast.
Yeah.
And so instinctively, it's a very familiar place. But some beings that have on this earth now that have the Akashic, all of the Akashic records in them 24/7 in a 3D existence, dolphins and whales and porpoises are all Akashic record keepers. Each one of them is. What do you think they're saying at that high frequency? Yeah, they're transmitting information at a really high frequency sometimes. There are different types of crystals.
Whale songs.
Whale song is very much Akashic record being played back. There are crystals that the striations are supposed to be. Let's see if I can. It's actually orange, but it's looking blue. There it is. You can see the striations. It actually took a right turn. I guess the information changed while it was being created.
Wow.
But this is a real interesting piece. I got it, picked it up in a store in Arizona 6 years ago. But you can see the striations, or whatever you call those things, those lines here and here. And not pixelated quartz. The quartz that have spikes in them, threads. There's a word.
Betty says it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's real pretty. Just a nice little square angle there. Rutilated quartz. But there's another type. When quartz has lines that looks like that's where it was cut. It's not. It's where it broke. It's where it shattered. and there's horizontal parallel lines, vague, it looks like scratches. Those are also considered Akashic records as well. Some people can read them. There you go. Put your hand behind it and see if you can get the camera to focus on it. You can see a little bit of cloudiness on one side, and your camera's not really wanting to focus. There, it did it right there. And it's kind of snowflakey, foggy looking. Those are Akashic records too. By popular.
Tell me what you know.
Exactly. People use those puppies and focus in on them and use them that way. They run their fingernail down those scratches and get the vibration. That's another way that people do it. People scry in mirrors. They scry in smoke and flames. And those patterns are also considered part of the Akashic record. So I thought I would just bring it forward that they actually physically exist, not just abstractly, so that weirdos like me and Iris can feel into it, hear it, and channel it or whatever. All psychics are doing that. All tarot readers are doing that. All palm readers and whatever types of chakras and aura readers are doing that. They're tapping, the genuine ones are tapping into the Akashic, but there are physical things that hold those records as well, which is really unusual. Makes me think, what else is a record keeper in other dimensions that aren't 3D? What does that appear as or manifest as? That'll be something interesting to look at or explore when we are in our fourth and fifth dimensional awareness.
Yeah. And then we'll go, oh gosh, is that what it is? I didn't know. Why didn't we think of that?
Absolutely. It'd be logical as all get out. So, guys, those of you that are listening, if you have questions about the Akashic record, please feel free to start typing your questions in the chat at any time. If we've sparked, a question like, if you said this, then what about that? Or my cousin said, blah, blah, blah. But anything you think is relevant to this, please feel free to ask us questions. And we'll tap into the Akashic to answer it. Actually, maybe even get out a little bit of a demonstration.
Yeah. So while we're waiting for questions, one of the questions that I thought of was, it was kind of a realization. Would that explain when you hear like these biblical stories where Moses came down with the 10 Commandments, or, the different prophets got information and that sort of thing, would you say that they were tapping into the Akashic records?
I'm asking them to show me Moses's journey in that moment, in that experience, and showing me behind the scenes where stuff was coming from. Yes, it was all Akashic record. Even Moses himself was record. They told him, you are creating record, but this is only a fraction of it. Oh, cool. There really were 15, not 10.
He dropped one of them and it broke like in.
Told you, the sense of humor is in there. Yeah, they 10 commandments. No, there actually were more than 10. They were not as specific as they're made out to be as well. They were actually the laws of gravity, the laws of duality, the law of one, the law of whatever. It was actually a description of that, of those things. Rather than thou shalt do this or that or the other.
Because we have to remember
that was an interpretation later. King James, the Nicene Council, and all that. So they were tapping into the Akashic, but it was a very, very specific part of the Akashic that had to do with human enlightenment versus Pleiadian enlightenment or Arcturian enlightenment or whatever other type of being you want to name. Those were Akashic records that were specific to human enlightenment. And the Moses journey, That's interesting. They want to call it that. The Moses journey did not succeed as fully as was hoped. Apparently, they didn't have a looking glass machine. So they didn't succeed as fully as they wanted. So they brought in the Jesus energy next to try again to carry the project forward. But Moses was on the same path. And oh wow, they're like, say this, say this, say this. They're pushing it. They want you to know that female leadership was closely involved and strongly involved. So Moses and his wife, Jesus and his wife, and the wives of and the girlfriends and the daughters and the sons were all closely involved in all of those teachings and journeys and experiences. The female participation has been exempted, has been obliterated.
And that was because of different rulers trying to take control. We got to control people.
And women were the original healers. They're the original baby makers. So they were the original first power to try to overthrow. And that's how they did it, by defamation. This is an old story. So coming back to here and now, you guys don't have questions? Nobody's asking any questions, and that's okay, but we like it when you ask questions. If you have any questions about where the Akashic, where it comes from, what it looks like, or an Akashic question for the world, for your consciousness. If you want to question something you've heard other people say, something we've said, bring it. We'd love to hear what jumped out at you and what you'd like to know more of.
Yes.
The Akashic Record naturally jumped over to Looking Glass. Hang on. The Akashic Record is laughing at the Looking Glass concept because it's so tiny compared to how big the Akashic is. They're like, really? You guys are putting a lot of faith in one weedy tiny thing. We're putting a lot of faith in one grain of sand, and the Akashic is the whole beach that wraps around the entire continent. And we're looking at one little tiny bit of sand because it's so pretty and it's so fascinating.
And if you look at it, that's the people that use it are firmly planted in the 3D perspective.
Right. They're trying, because they're trying really hard to save it in their own definition of that. But the Akashic thinks it's funny. We're so they find it humorous, I should say. They find it humorous that we're so intensely using, not just us, but the whole people in authority, or think that they're in authority, or using it.
And that's good advice for living life too.
Yeah, that's true.
Look at the big picture, and whatever's bothering you, when you look at the big picture and the scope of it all, is it really that important? Edie says, tried a meditation on it once. I was in my car. The only thing I became aware was that my hair was standing up, brushing the ceiling of my car. I think I have a long way to go.
Honey, you stepped all over the law of electricity. Pow. Yeah, apparently you ran across the law of electricity in your a little foray into doing that.
Speaking of,
what about?
This is
yes.
Tesla, and he's quoted as saying, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists." And I have actually heard speculation that he was actually channeling the law of electricity.
Mm-hmm.
He was far more in tune than he realized. And
he came here to do that.
Yeah.
And he was entirely conscious of that the whole time, which is partly why he ended up destitute and, quote, alone, Well, he wasn't as alone as they want us to think. They like us to think destitute things about brilliant, super intelligent people to dissuade us from pursuing that path for ourselves and our children. He was actually in good company here and off planet. And eventually he left planet. It became too dangerous for him to stay in a 3D body. He still exists in this universe, in this he has a body, but not on this planet. And I know that sounds abstract, but if you look at the works and the readings and the writings of Nikola Tesla, you'll find out that concept is not as weird as it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was definitely not even next level. He was 10 levels above. And he came here to do that. Listening to channelings of Nikola Tesla through talented, reputable channelers is fascinating. It's interesting to watch how he comes out and what he has to say. He definitely likes making commentary. He does. He definitely likes making commentary. He's fascinated by the human experience, and he has plans to come back and try again. Mm-hmm. As something else, not as Nikola Tesla, but as someone else. A little more mundane, so he could have an ordinary life instead of just super freak genius life.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, Edie, that's a good story. Thank you. Yeah, sounds like you stepped all over the law of electricity by accident. That's pretty cool.
And I don't recommend, be sure if you're meditating in your car that you're still grounded.
Still aware of what's going on in front of you. It's easy to want to do that because we get in a light state of hypnosis when we are driving a familiar route. It's normal for us to sort of check out and go by habit. So it's easy to meditate then. The easiest time for me to meditate is going to sleep or waking up. And when I'm teaching meditation, it's also very easy to meditate then. What's interesting is talking about what is Akashic like and what does it look like and where does it show up. I just had a memory that I hadn't mentioned yet. When
she
I'm
was
doing,
parked in the marina to clarify that.
oh,
That's
very
good.
good. Yeah, parked is good. Parked is very good. Like when I'm teaching meditation, where I'm leading a long meditation, a guided meditation. What happens is the person I'm guiding, say there's 5 or 6 people in the room, they become like stars in a night sky. They start glowing and twinkling and radiating energy, white light. And if you analyze them very closely, there's a duller one coming out of their head, but there's a huge, shiny, gigantic one coming out of their chest. And the rest of them becomes transparent. And so it's like a binary star. But when you look at the person from several feet away, it looks like one glowing being. And they basically are miniature representations of the Akashic relative to their own experience of it, their own filter of it. So this one person will look a little bit more white and bright and crisp and shiny and laser beams coming off, where the next person will look pinkish white and their rays look more floaty and cloudy and wafty, but they're still rays, but they're just softer and not so sharp and they're more like kind of watery, blowy, windy. The next person, their light and their energy might look more crystalline and transparent. It might look like shards of quartz or shards of glass or something, shards of diamond, big long shards. And the feeling energy coming off of them can sound more musical and tinkly.
Oh.
And, kind of like, when you tap metal or tap glass, and it makes a sound. Or, through water like a tank, stuff like that. And not that I go around tapping on people while they're meditating, because that would be rude. and a little bit
Bump them in the head and see what they say.
Super melon is ripe. Kapong.
Oh, look, I can do two of you.
You're not done yet. Go back to sleep. You ain't done yet. So, not that I do that, but while I'm leading the meditation, I'll be walking around the room so I get to observe them as they pass by. I don't like actually messing with them.
Mustn't touch the pretty
Mustn't touch the pretties. Well, you can if you're having sex with them.
Oh, yeah. But
just to be completely 360 about that. Yeah, and it's very different at that point too. That Akashic experience is entirely different from any other Akashic experience. It is basically like the Mac Daddy Supreme sacred right of access to infinite information during a healthy, loving experience of intimacy. And you get enlightened really quick. How much of it you retain later is up to you. But in the moment you get it, that's another access to the Akashic Record, is through intimacies. I get a lot of information, shifting gears a little bit, I get a lot of information petting the cat and scratching down his head and through his fur. But that's only when he's in the mood for it. Now, Betty says, I tried to meditate on the records and was visited by a deceased loved one. Yes, lots of times they will try to come and help us interpret if they feel like it. Yes. And sometimes they're good at it, and sometimes it's just their interpretation of it.
Yeah.
So
and
it just
they
depends.
might speak energy and take advantage of, oh, I've got a pathway here. Let me, hello. It just depends.
Absolutely. The deceased loved one may have naturally been a record keeper in its existence or in its past, in their past somewhere. So I'm picking up that they were kicking in to try to help. That's very cool. Thank you for sharing that, Betty. That's awesome. That's very awesome.
Well, we're actually past time to wrap it up. But next week, we're going to talk about debt at the Bank of Karma.
Good karma, bad karma.
What does it mean, and
paying back, losing karma, gaining karma.
Yeah.
Karmic value. It's a lot like banking. The terminology is not the process necessarily. The terminology is similar. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. And if you have questions in the meantime or things come up and you're curious, you can contact us on our Facebook page or leave a comment under the YouTube things and videos, and we can respond to those. I mean, I get notifications for them for the YouTube, and I know Margot also gets the notifications for our Facebook page. So one way or another, you can ask us, or you can always email me. It's iris@iriscarter.com. Or you could email Margot at
indigoanswers.com.
Yeah.
indigoanswers.com.
So we'd be happy to help you in any way we can, or answer questions, or put things back for another show. That's always a good stimulus for us.
Love suggestions for topics that you would like to know more about. We'd love to hear what you think.
But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's good to see everybody, and we'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
We be batty. Good night.
Thank you for joining The Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod of Incomptech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons. Visit our Facebook page for broadcast details at www.facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo. Show is copyrighted 2022 by Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. All rights reserved.